Welcome to Hat Tricks City on WXCI 91.7, Danbury's only all-hockey radio show.
I know that some in our audience don't know the finer points of hockey.
You want me to dummy you again?
Hat Tricks, baby! Woo-hoo!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hat Tricks City. I'm your host, DJ Patty Cake, as always joined by Dean Joe Matt here in the WXCI studios. This week we don't have too much to talk about, but we do want to talk about one historic thing to start off this episode. The PWHL, the Professional Women's Hockey League, had their opening week. Pretty historic for numerous amount of reasons. A lot of big sellout crowds. New York was able to get their pretty much the first shutout in the league's history against Toronto in Toronto. And then they also had their home opener over in Bridgeport. So, big week for, the sport and for women in the sport. Matt, did you get to catch any of it?
I really didn't get to watch big portions of the games, but I did notice two things that I think are going to make the game way more exciting. Maybe even three things. First of all, this league looks pretty well organized. The thing is, they can't back out of these arenas. They look good. The game looks good on TV. That's where it has to stay. They can't, now move back to a small facilities. But I think the things that I really liked, I love this idea that a shorthanded goal ends a power play. It sounds great. It's a new rule change. Listen, nobody's chip pucks in, chip pucks out. More than me. It's I'm kind of an old school guy. I like to dump the puck in the zone and then make the other team kind of make a mistake trying to get it out of there, and kind of almost score all the time that way. But listen, it definitely you have the opportunity to ice it. No icing, but now to have the opportunity to kind of end your disadvantage by scoring a shorthanded goal, I think that's going to make hockey more exciting. It's obviously something that if the NHL is involved, they probably want the PWHL to test this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I thought that was great. And I also noticed that it does look like they're allowing a fair amount of contact.
I know. I was pretty happy with that too. A lot of nice hits, that were going by, and from the time that I worked in the PHF, I was like, this is a million times better already.
I don't think that creating a non-traditional version of hockey is going to necessarily endear pro hockey fans or even college hockey fans to watch, women's professional hockey. I think it has to be authentic hockey, and I think so far we've seen some of it. Like I said, there's an exciting rule change that I think probably would make most hockey better. Probably definitely make beer league hockey better. And there's also, now a little bit of the element of physicality that you hadn't seen there. We saw a lot of skill. Pat, Pat's wearing the Connecticut Whale shirt right now. I hope they don't go with that name for this league or anything like that. It's they're playing out of Bridgeport. They are playing at UBS, I think, tonight.
Yeah, they're playing tonight
which is Wednesday night.
Yep, against Ottawa.
So at the end of the day, it's great to see that opportunity. Pat and I saw a lot of skill.
Or Montreal, rather. Sorry.
Is Kennedy Marchment in this league?
I think she's on the Players Association board. I don't believe she's playing.
Yeah, she was a skilled player that played here last season.
I know, she was fun to watch.
Is Grant Mentis.
Michaela.
Marquise. I think she's with Ottawa, right?
Is she? Yeah, she's with Ottawa. I'll double check that too.
Maybe not, but again, there's the Marquise Grant Mentis' sister, Marquise, who played actually briefly for the Hat Tricks last season, the first game of the season.
Yep, PWHL Ottawa.
His sister is one of the top players in women's hockey, and she is with Ottawa. So yeah, it's great to see the league take off. It's the birth of a new sports league. Again, you're entering a really crowded market. Even at this time of the year, there's still NFL going on. There's still college football going on. There's still all types of college hockey, middle of the pro season, middle of the college season. So That's what's up against it. But I do think that these could be fun events. It has to grow like the WNBA did. I think the WNBA was like 16 games the first season, or something like that. So it's going to have to grow.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a fun one to watch. We definitely got to try and go down to a game at least once when they're in Bridgeport. I think they play there at least like 4 or 5 more times. So that'd be interesting to go. But speaking of New York, so the boys took a trip to New York for the weekend, going against Elmira and Watertown and winning both games, riding that momentum from those 2 Binghamton games they played to end out the year of 2023. Taking down Elmira 6-1, followed by a 5-3 win in Watertown the next night. It's nice to see what this team is becoming now. I know I said this a little earlier on in the season, but I do feel from what I've heard from players and then what I see on the ice, they're gelling a lot more, and this roster is becoming a little more complete. It's really nice to see it kind of really get into what it was last year. I mean, at this time. So, I mean, Matt, what are your thoughts on this past weekend?
You said it pretty good there, Pat. I mean, I think the team is starting to gel now after having been retooled. We're seeing a very different roster than we saw with the championship run. You know, there's a lot of new faces. There are some familiar faces. Johnny Ruiz has been playing out of his mind. Just incredible. I really got to tip my cap to him.
Or throw it on the ice for that hat trick he had on Friday.
Yeah, just incredible. Johnny is really one of the most talented scorers the league has, and he's got an element of effortless mastery that he plays with at this point, and really it's been a big difference maker this season, if you ask me. But at the end of the day, it's a retooled roster, and I think things are starting to change a little bit, and it's going to be a big test against Binghamton this weekend. I love this rivalry. I tell my buddies to drive up here when we're playing Binghamton, from the city. It's like, hey, this is the weekend you want to be here. Even if you just come up for Saturday night, get up here, because, again, it's starting to be something that we always thought it could be with Danbury. It's like, now we got a great rival in Binghamton, a city that they love hockey there as much as we hate them, and they're all pains in the asses. This is good for the league. It's a good rivalry.
It is.
It's getting attention beyond the small circle that the Fed used to just exist in. So I'm excited for this weekend. I honestly can't wait. And if you want to hang out with us, Pat and I are working both junior games.
Asterisks on both.
Ooh.
I won't be there on Saturday all day, unfortunately. I have to work in Bridgeport. I have to do video board. But Friday I'll be there. I'll be announcing both the junior game and the pro game. So if you want to hear me announce for, I think, the 3rd time in the Fed, definitely come down on Friday. But I am excited to see how this series is going to go this weekend. Also, Jake Schultz has returned to Binghamton from Worcester,
Wow.
A personal favorite of mine. So interesting to see how he is back in the lineup and how they kind of worked him back in. Again, I expect nothing but great hockey this weekend. I mean, to end out 2023, that was a nice series against them. So again, I think it's going to be another big weekend. So it's one that you just really can't miss.
Absolutely.
So without further ado, stay tuned for our great interview with Liam Murray. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hat Trick City. This week on the show, we got goaltender Liam Murray on the show. Liam, how you doing today?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Liam, it's great to finally have you on the show. Have a fellow Hat Tricks goaltender. We've already had, Connor McCullum on the show, so we figured it'd only be right to have you. Tell us, you're coming from Mississippi into Danbury. How have you enjoyed your time so far here in Danbury?
I love it. It was a lot closer to my school at UMass Boston last year, so it was easy to step right in. And then coming into the locker room, meeting the guys, I was pretty much, they had their arms wide open for me right away. So I've been loving it. I've been excited and keep going with it.
Of course, and then I also want to ask, about your time in Mississippi. I mean, how does it kind of like differ from at least up here in the East Coast, minus the weather?
Yeah, I mean, the hockey, I feel like, is a lot stronger here. There's a lot better systems. It seems like guys love hockey here, and it's not just the guys on the team; it's the fans. They appreciate hockey. They understand hockey, and that has nothing against Mississippi. Obviously, their fans were great, and the people there were great. But it's good to be in a hockey town, and that's a huge difference that I've noticed so far.
Speaking of hockey towns and not hockey towns, so I guess, were you born in Fort Lauderdale? Is that where you're from? Or
Yep. I was born and raised in Fort Lauderdale.
Wow. So Fort Lauderdale was, before you were born, probably in your, maybe not even in your parents' era, just a little before that, was like one of the most happening towns in America for spring break. That was like a party. There's some great documentaries about it and footage on YouTube. What's it like today? Is it still a good place to hang out?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was in school, the guys were always telling me, hey, I'm coming down to Fort Lauderdale. Or, I was in 3 different schools, and I would have text messages from schools that I were in the past that guys were like, hey, I'm coming for spring break. Are you going to be there? And, I mean, funny enough, I actually live next to the oldest bar in Fort Lauderdale is Elbow Room.
Wow.
I'm walking distance from it. So I know it's a big name for a lot of people for spring break.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very close.
A lot of people don't know that when the drinking age in America was 18, like Fort Lauderdale, they were talking about like 500,000 people a week descending on Fort Lauderdale. Today, it's probably like maybe 100,000 people come.
Oh, it still might be more than that.
You think?
It's packed. The beaches get packed. Traffic's crazy.
Yeah.
A little ridiculous, but
There's
still
a great documentary called Spring Broke. And it really chronicles, if you can find it out there, if you're interested in the like kind of some classic American kind of history, I guess you would say, definitely of Spring Broke, and it just goes into what a wild town Lauderdale was on the beach and all that. I mean, kids were doing unfortunate events led to it kind of like ending. Kids were like jumping off roofs and trying to make it into pools, and just it was getting to be tragic situations related to that. But like we don't. We associate it with a lot of things. We don't really associate it with hockey that much. But I guess the Panthers are close enough to Lauderdale, right?
So, yeah, I mean, Panthers are close. We also have Tampa Bay, which is about 5 hours, but it's still close. Over the years, and I mean, it's crazy how much Florida has grown hockey. Just 2 or 3 few examples is Jacob Chychrun from the NHL. He was drafted, I think, 1st or 2nd overall. Jack Hughes, basically all the Hughes brothers were from Tampa there. Yeah. And then that's just some big names, but there's so many more. Randy Hernandez, who I grew up playing with, he's a Cuban-American. His parents actually came over on a raft there.
Wow.
And he did not know what hockey was until he was skating around, free skating one day, and got picked up. And he's now at Canisius. He played for Team USA and TDP for 2 years. And, I mean, I can only imagine where he's going to go after his school.
So how does it work for you? You're growing up in Florida. You want to reach the next levels. Obviously that puts you on the track to go to college hockey. What's the kind of the path for you? Is it high school hockey? And then so how does it go?
Yeah, so there's different tracks for Floridians for hockey. I took a different route than a lot of my teammates. We played AA up until my U16 year. Then I played AAA. And then, funny enough, it was actually one of my worst seasons ever. Was my 2nd year of U16. And I played 1 good game against the number 1 team, and I happened to have a lot of scouts there. And I was recruited to play for a team in Michigan called Honey Baked Ham in the AAA. So I was fortunate enough that my mom ended up moving up with me to Michigan at my U16 year.
Wow.
My second year of U16. And so that's where kind of my career really picked up. I know there's a lot of other guys in my team that went and played prep. That was a big step for a lot of the guys. Just South Kent. I know Exeter is another one, big name.
Sure.
There's a lot of them. And that's a different route, obviously. And then, obviously, when I was in Michigan, big hockey state, so that kind of helped me out a lot, and I got a lot of experience from there.
You ended up playing a couple of games in the NAHL for the Wilkes-Barre-Stratton Knights, which hockey fans, if you're keeping track, they are now the Danbury Junior Hat Tricks. So that was in the NAHL. What was that experience like? Like you get up to those levels, kind of looks like you get an opportunity there, and then how does the road kind of fork for you?
So funny story actually with my U16 year at Honey Baked, I did really well. I think at one point I was 18-0 with obviously a really good team that was in front of me. So I had looks to play juniors that year. However, being from Florida, not knowing where to go, didn't have a lot of people telling me where to go. I didn't know where to play in juniors. I didn't know the NAL was a thing at that time, and I had calls to the NAL, and I said no because I had no idea what it was. It wasn't until my second year when I was in Meyer U18 that I was able to play well again my U18 year, and then I get called, luckily, as an emergency situation at the end of the season to play for Wilkes, and I got to see playoff games. So that was a really great experience, and that kind of led me into my next year of juniors that I was able to play in.
So that was with the Jersey Hitmen. Was that at Ice Vault in Wayne?
Yep.
And that was once the home of the New Jersey Outlaws, a team for which Billy McCreary won a championship with. Not in that building. Maybe it was in that building.
I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yep. Yeah, the New Jersey Outlaws. A 1 year entry, and then they moved to, we tell this all the time, then they moved to Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and planned to play the entire season outside, and it worked up until about January, or it really didn't work. So then you get back to the NAHL. So
actually, funny story is that before that, I was actually in the USHL.
Okay, what happened?
A lot of things were out of put with the NAL and where I was going to play at the beginning of the season. I luckily got a call a week before I was leaving to go to Janesville Jets in the NAL that Lincoln Stars in the USHL needed a goalie. So I was like, absolutely. So I was able to live in Nebraska for a month. I got a game there. I think I played Omaha in Lincoln's rink, which was really great because that's a huge rivalry and packed house. It was preseason. And then after that, they ended up trading for another goalie. It was in a trade, and I was released. And that's where then I went to New Jersey. So then I went to New Jersey, and then I went to Brookings after that in the Blizzard.
Where
in
is
South Dakota.
Brookings? South Dakota.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow, so
very small town.
You're heading around. What's the game atmosphere like in Brookings for the Brookings Blizzard?
So they're no longer a team. However, they're St. Cloud now, I think, is the Norseman.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was in Brookings, funny enough, it's about an hour from Sioux Falls. There's about 2 or 3 stores in there. It's very tiny. The biggest thing there is 3M, the big company.
Yeah.
So they have their own private airstrip and everything. But the town closed down for the games. They loved hockey. We definitely sold out a lot of the games. And obviously SDSU, South Dakota State University, is right there next to Brookings. But it was great. I mean, I loved it. It was definitely interesting for a lot of guys that live in cities that have no idea what it's like to live out, not in the country, just live out where there's not a lot there.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. I loved it.
So then you do this like kind of college tour here that starts in Pennsylvania, right?
Yep.
At Wilkes. What was the comeback there? Was it what was the draw there?
Yeah, I just traveled a lot in juniors, and I just wanted to stick somewhere at home, and I got an opportunity to play college pretty early. I was a true freshman, and I was just like, well, I'd rather go play for a school that I know I can't get moved around, and then be able to fight for a spot and really play. So then I decided to go to Wilkes because they were giving me a good offer, actually with X,
right,
is the other guy on the team.
Xavier Abdella, who I just ran into him and his mother at Minas Carne, just around the block here.
Shout out
Danbury.
Minas.
So you go there and you play once. You get in a couple. What's the obviously? So what a lot of people don't know is that really the transfer rules are a little different actually in hockey, and I think D3 you don't actually have to sit out.
Yeah, so D3 you don't have to sit out. You don't have to redshirt a year. However, D1 you do.
Right. They started they started eliminating all that. Well, it basically, since the name, image, and likeness thing, that's pretty much eliminated.
And
you
COVID as well.
Right.
COVID.
You could play right away. You could transfer and play right away. But I don't think a lot of people realize it was pretty much decidedly that way. It's a retention thing, right? Especially for smaller colleges. For a while, for some reason, it had never spread to college football and basketball. But pretty much all the other sports, you were able to, I think, technically somehow play the next season. So you were able to just keep playing, huh?
Yeah,
when you make you make 2 moves, and so you go to Wilkes University, which is it's Scranton area, right?
Yep.
And then you transfer to Bethel University, which I think is in Minnesota, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So what's the draw there? I mean, is it a goalie coach that sent you out there, a guy you know?
It was tough. I got a few games playing, and I won both of them, and I just really wasn't getting an opportunity there. I was backing up every game, and
At Wilkes.
and I thought there was other things involved, obviously, that obviously can't be spoken about, but yeah, I decided that it was best for me to look for other schools. I got one of my coaches from past kind of suggested Bethel as an option. What I was really looking for is a D3 school with engineering, because I was studying engineering at the time. I was doing mechanical engineering, and Bethel was one of the few schools that has mechanical engineering and has a D3 hockey program. So that was a big plus for me. So I was able to transfer to Bethel. Again, played a few games. I had a rough start my first games there, so it didn't help my cause for playing more games. Then I got some other opportunities in the past and later on in the season, but by then it's already too late. Then obviously COVID hit. We left before this school year ended, and then I just thought it was in my best interest to then move again to now UMass Boston.
Wow.
So it's a lot of schools.
Trifecta.
It's a lot of schools.
That's interesting. And I mean, I got to be honest now, just speaking in terms of college, we are on the campus of Western Connecticut State University, so it's not like totally off brand, but I mean, you go from Wilkes. Scranton is a nice enough place. The people do enjoy hockey there. There's a great wings place I like out there, and obviously the guys from Spittin' Chicklets are always talking about different spots out there, so I got to give props to Scranton. But I mean, I don't know what goes on near Bethel University, but then you kind of hit the jackpot. You get to go to school in Boston, right?
Oh, yeah, and the coach definitely sold that. He's like, hockey's great, school's great, but you're also in Boston. You go to Bruins games, you go to Fenway games. There's the nightlife there is amazing as almost a senior at that point.
What did you study then?
I finished, so I ended up switching over to electrical engineering, and funny enough, I just graduated. I'm getting my diploma as of yesterday.
That's awesome.
I got an email.
Congratulations,
Thank
dude.
you. Appreciate it.
Good. You stuck with it through, looks like several pro games now. Your career, and you finished off. That's great, man. Let's see, how many years and 3 schools and about
7 or 8 games or something like
how
that.
How many years later, buddy? Let's see.
Yeah.
This guy's a Van Wilder of the Fed.
I just really wanted to experience the school life and see everyone's different schools.
Well, you know what it is? I think it's interesting for a goalie, and I've actually started to see this in a little bit in Major League Soccer. A lot of the kids that were going to go this academy, like it's a little different, just in soccer, right, in Major League Soccer. A lot of the kids that were going that academy route a few years ago are saying, hey, this is stupid. I'm going to turn pro. They can cut me whenever I want. I could be cut and ineligible to go back to college at 19 or 20. It's just like, yeah, I made $40,000 a year, but like now I can't go back to school and be on the University of Virginia soccer team that gets a couple of thousand students at every game. And like, I'm going to miss out on that whole experience. Like the junior thing it's a great concept, right? And it's basketball, and basketball has been fighting it for years, right? Like figuring out some alternative. So basically, like junior hockey becomes an alternative to your last year of high school, last couple of years of high school, and your first year or two of college, right? Like, how many years junior do the guys get? 2, 4?
I would say about 3 or 4.
Right.
And it's like I had that route where I pretty much was offered a spot in the OHL, and I decided I want to go to college. I want to play hockey. So I didn't know really much about the OHL and what their offers are, but I knew if I went to college, I'd be able to get a degree, and if hockey never turns out, I finished with a degree, and that's the biggest thing for me.
And you blow your NCAA.
Correct.
Even if you practice in the OHL. If you go to one tryout, you blow your
So you
used to be
you can sit out a year, I think it is now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I have a friend that's now playing at Stevenson, and I think he sat out last year, and that was his first year. And he was in the O for a full year, I think.
Wow.
So I think it's per year you play or something. I don't know exact rules. Don't quote me on it.
Like I said, there might be some flexibility, and obviously we've had it on the last couple episodes that if you play Canadian, you could play pro and go back to you could play in the NHL and go back to Canadian college and be on the team. But yeah, just if these OHLs and the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, sometimes guys go to these tryouts under fake names, so that if they get picked, they say, actually, my name is this. I didn't want you to.
And that's what they were selling me on is, hey, come do the tryout at least. Come look at it.
You blow your ends.
Well, they wanted me to pay for everything, so that's where if they start paying for things, that considers you a professional, I think, and that's where you kind of get into that really tough area of NCAA.
We've seen that. I mean, even a few years, like we see that pretty. I don't know how often. I mean, the example that comes to mind for me is the kid from Long Island. His family had a bar out there in Freeport, Long Island. Bracco's Jeremy Bracco, who played. He played for Boston College for like a month or two, and then ended up, I believe it was in the OHL of Kitchener or something like that. So it's just like one of those things where it's like the college track is not for everybody. But I think that for the goalies especially, and like I was saying about Major League Soccer, that it's some of these kids are saying, hey, what's the point of just kind of dropping out or going into this minor league thing? I blow my NCAA. I can't get a degree. And with the transfer rules, if you're really good at one school, you can basically find your way to a really good school and say, hey, I want to do a grad year. Let's say you finished your career at Central Connecticut State as their best soccer player, but let's just say you have a year of eligibility left. Well, you could go transfer to St. John's University or UConn and play for them. And probably see a lot of minutes because they say, hey, you're an older guy, you're all warmed up. So I just think in the college hockey thing, there's a lot of opportunity for guys than if you kind of just stick with the junior thing,
Yeah, I can totally agree with that.
So since you've been here, what's kind of your impression of the Fed been? It looks like you went to some SPHL camps. What was your road to Danbury after UMass Boston?
So after school at UMass Boston, my coach was able to get in contact with Delaware Thunder, which now no longer exist, and got me an opportunity there to go see what the Fed is about, go get a professional game. So I was able to go there, experience practice for a week, and then they threw me headfirst straight into a game against Columbus, which was number 1 in the league, and Delaware was a struggling team.
Yep.
So I felt I did well. However, 7 goals is still tough. I let up.
Time is it? 7 past Murray.
Oh, no.
But like I said, a lot of guys, I think that's one thing that you look at in the Fed. The one thing that I can say, and I give all of the guys who play credit, but when you look at a Delaware team, when you look at the Steel City Warriors from like a while back, when you look at Berlin, New Hampshire, all of those teams that were kind of short-lived and not really well-funded, a lot of good players came out of them. The Steel City Warriors, a guy that everybody in Danbury loves, Nick Levesque, played with them. Nicola Levesque.
Well, Charlie Bedard, who was my roommate for a little bit, and then obviously he's now in the SP.
Did he play with Berlin?
No, he played with Delaware. He played with...
There you go. That's a perfect example. So what I'm trying to say is it's almost like these Delawares, these Steel City Warriors. I'm trying to think of other teams that have been around. I mean, even the famous Battle Creek.
I was gonna say the Rumblebees.
There's a couple of guys came out of that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. And I mean,
Susie was one.
Susie was the one that was coming to my mind too. The other person,
Houston Wilson, that was in Elmira, and then now is in
he was with
Pensacola.
Delaware.
But he was also in the Coast at the beginning of the year.
That's right.
He went straight to the Coast a lot this year.
The other guy I'm thinking of for Delaware is Trevor Babin.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The other
big one.
guy I'm thinking of with Mentor, which they seemed like they had something going on there. I don't know, what ended up happening there because of COVID, but Gordy Bennell, right?
Oh yeah.
Didn't he start out with Mentor?
Yeah.
I'm pretty
I'll
sure.
even double check that. Hold on.
Pretty sure. So there have been guys that got that opportunity somewhere else. Kind of, one of these teams that kind of doesn't quite being as competitive as you'd hope that they had been at times. But again, it's almost like an opportunity showcase. Guys really do come out of those teams and end up being in the league for a few years or even end up moving on.
Yeah. Played a full season with Mentor before coming here.
It's just an idea is that, the Fed really has grown in the last couple of years. We're back up to like right? I think we're back up to the same numbers we had
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, pre-COVID in
pretty
terms of
much.
teams. And that means there's more jobs than there were. And, Adamo Asselin and his brother, they're now, looks like they were playing with Baton Rouge.
Yeah,
a
Baton
lot.
Rouge.
They're always fighting.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
They're always
When
fighting.
I was in
and
Mississippi, they were always fighting the guys. Both of them, always together.
they
Every single time.
those two guys. So it's just like the list goes on and on. I really wish that there could be more stable local teams, but at the end of the day,
Well, I've heard there's some big rumors coming around that there's some new teams coming into the works.
what have you heard, Liam?
I've heard that there might be a Texas team. I've heard that what's the team that used to be that was an SB team as well. It might be coming back as well. Danville.
Yeah,
I heard that. And then
Danville,
I
I
heard
think,
another
is
one.
done.
I was gonna say they got approved for that.
Yep.
Now it's
I
just
think that's done.
And then
getting it ready.
rumor has it, and I have no idea, don't quote me on this, Atlantic City might be having a team.
We've only been talking it on the show for a few years, but I just
They were bringing it up this year. It was,
I was gonna say. I think we brought that up the last episode too.
I text you, didn't I, about this? I don't know if we ever talked about it on the show. We've just kind of been in and out so much lately, but the Texas thing makes perfect sense. Perfect sense.
I was gonna say I saw your thing on Facebook about that.
That's what I was trying to pull up. Like I thought I like almost circled it. Like there was right on the map.
Yeah, you had how it made sense with like the Southern Division with it being like in line with like
I
Mississippi.
think they're having
and-
neutral site games there this year, is what I heard when I was in Mississippi.
I was gonna say they usually do that for the new teams. They did that for Mississippi. They did that for
Yep.
Baton Rouge. So
and
it
they
only makes
they
sense.
sold up both times.
I was gonna say they.
Mississippi is huge too. It's 11,000, I think, and they were selling out. And then Baton Rouge, I heard, sold out one of the games, and then had really good fans the second game,
Yeah,
or vice versa, whatever it was.
I say those usually turn out those exhibition ones. I'm eager to see how this
And
Texas one works out.
I did hear the LSU cheerleaders were there, or not the cheerleaders, the gymnastics crew.
Oh,
So
snap.
Livy Dunn was there, I think, at one point too.
That's neat.
So if we're looking at a map here,
I think that they should bring a Florida team in. I mean, it's tough with the SB team there and a lot of
Yeah.
coast teams, but I mean, obviously being a Floridian, it would be huge
I know that'd be
as
neat. That'd be
having
neat.
a Florida team.
so if you have Baton Rouge and Biloxi,
Yeah,
it's a straight line. Let's just say from Baton Rouge to Biloxi to Beaumont, Texas,
yeah.
where the West Texas Wildcatters played in the ECHL. So that's like, let's just see Baton Rouge
Baton Rouge is like 2 hours, I think, was when we would drive there.
Baton Rouge to Beaumont. Biloxi to Beaumont is 5.5 hours.
Yeah.
5.5 hours. Biloxi, let's see, and then
And I want to say Columbus to Biloxi was about 4 and change.
And then Baton Rouge to Beaumont, 2 hours, 49 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the point that I'm trying to say is like, it makes sense geographically. What we've always said, it's so hard in the Northeast. And we say it all the time. The Northeast is, in the spots where the population is heavy, it's saturated with sports. In the portion where the population's a little thin, there are less opportunities to see stuff. And there's usually like a ton of small colleges kind of trying to eat up the marketing dollars and all this. So like I said, it's always, we say it on the show every single week. I'm sick of saying it. It's always going to be kind of a battle for Danbury, even to have healthy opponents. You know what I mean? We already made that swap in the division this year, where now Motor City's in our division and Blue Ridge is in the other division. So
I feel like Blue Ridge makes more sense than the other one, though, in terms of
100%.
Yeah, in terms of what it is. But obviously, the replacement wasn't going to really make sense, at least for our division. Like any one of the, because it was going to be one of those teams.
It's really interesting because sometimes you hear about places in the U.S. where they want to put pro sports, like Hampton Roads area, Norfolk area, like all these places where, we'll put an NBA arena in Norfolk if we can guarantee the team. We'll put the biggest arena in the world. Like
put a G League in Norfolk.
Like that's what I'm trying to say. So at the end of the day, it's frustrating when there aren't like more teams right here in the Northeast that want to play against Danbury, want to play against Binghamton, want to play against, even. We say it all the time. But anyway, let's say something different. What has it been like? You got in a couple of games in December. What's it been like playing for Danbury?
It's great. I mean, I was lucky enough to play a home game recently. And I mean, it was crazy. I mean, how many fans were there? I think there was standing room only. Yeah. And I mean, I was struggling to hear the refs because it was so loud at some points. But I mean, I love it. I enjoy it. The fans are great. I, funny enough, have watched the documentary on Netflix and seen some of the same fans, and I'm a little bit of fanboy over it. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite fan so far? You have like a fan that's like kind of had your back a little bit, or?
I'm not really on anyone on first name basis yet, but there's been quite a few that have been super nice to me and just been welcoming from the start. So I mean, I don't think I have a favorite yet. How about that?
There you go.
Yeah.
Who's your roommate?
I have Colby Audette right now.
Okay.
So
he'll be the next one to come on this.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Does he keep the room tidy, or what's the story with him?
Yeah, no, I mean, both him and because I had Charlie Bedard too before he left. Both of them have been great roommates. I'm kind of a clean freak myself, so I think when he walked in and noticed that, I think he was able to respect me, and I appreciate that a lot. And
when actually did you get here?
So I got traded from Mississippi, I think November 30th. I found out after practice or mid-practice. Long story of that, but then I was able to fly out because we had games against Motor City. Mm-hmm. So I flew out that morning. I think had maybe 3 hours of sleep. Jumped on a plane and came in. And dressed for both those games. And then I was able to get my truck up here eventually after that.
Wow, that's awesome. Wow. What was it like kind of playing down in Biloxi for a while? Like, what's the vibe outside of the rink, like around town? We kind of always ask guys, we know it's a kind of a casino town and a beach town. Did you guys spend a little time going out, or?
Not as much going out, but we definitely... The casinos were awesome, honestly.
You like to play?
A little bit. I dabble. not too much. I try to save my money.
Smart man.
But
mom and dad are listening.
Yeah. The Hard Rock had a nice pool, so the boys would sneak in.
Like a big pool?
Yeah. The boys would be able to sneak in. There were some really good restaurants on the beach. One of the guys was dating a daughter of one of the restaurant owners, so we were able to go there sometimes.
We don't have a pool.
No.
We don't have a pool.
It was a great spot.
We don't have a pool in Danbury. We just have flooded streets.
I was gonna say, yeah, you can go to the Danbury Mall. They got
like a huge puddle in the parking lot.
Yeah.
That would be Pat. You just came up with a great idea. I think Danbury needs a casino/pool in the parking lot of the mall.
There you go.
That would be
A moneymaker. That's
that
what
would be
is.
kind of crazy. That would that mall's already trying to be
Wasn't
like.
there a casino near the Delaware team too? Right?
Yeah, I could see it from my
Did you go
house.
to it or?
Yeah, I went there a couple times. I got food there.
Oh yeah, you had dinner.
Neat.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I signed with Mississippi was for multiple reasons. I really do, and I can speak very highly of Joe Pace. I know he can have some tough situations with guys and fans and whatever. However, he really does care about the players, and that was something I respected and I saw while I was there. But then also, Mississippi is literally just Florida's the Pensacola area, just stretched out. It is Biloxi is literally just Florida.
It's the same.
It was the exact same, and I felt right at home, like I didn't even move out of Florida, and that was a
That's
big
neat.
thing. That was nice. Was like I moved. I think it was a 13-hour drive, and I still felt like I was in Florida.
Are your parents from Florida?
No. So my mom's from South Africa,
Wow.
and my dad is from New York.
So did you have? I mean, South Africa is not really a hotbed for hockey, but were your parents at all into it? Or?
Yeah. So my dad grew up playing
Okay.
on the streets and then in rinks, and then I think he played for SUNY Maritime.
Really?
Yes.
wow.
So he was
Wow.
there.
That's pretty impressive.
It's a Westcon
where's your
opponent.
dad from?
He's from why can I not think of it right now? Long Island, but I can't think
Name
of
of the town.
So,
you
yeah.
can't think of. Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, it's Long Island, another hotbed for hockey.
Yeah.
No place on Long Island for a Fed team, though. I don't think.
No.
No.
It's tough to. It's also
tough to get there too.
It's
with the
tough
bus.
to get there. We talked. I think I've said this on an episode before. One time, Herm. From what I know, one time Herm did have a lease signed at what is now Northwell Health Ice
Okay.
Center, which is the New York Islanders practice facility at the original kind of configuration of that place. It was it was a project of two Long Islanders, Peter and Chris Ferraro. They played in the NHL, both for the New York Rangers. One of them got in some games for the Islanders. I think they were kind of like always together. It was a bit of a thing in the 90s. They played at Maine together. I think they won the national championship there. They played for Team USA together, made it to the NHL together. And they were kind of fringe guys most of their career, but they definitely got their games in. Their family owned really famous surf shop out in Montauk and a couple of other sporting goods stores as well. But they had gotten into a bunch of things, different businesses, but they ultimately built this brand new facility, which is now the Islanders practice rink. It was originally called Twin Rinks. And as a matter of fact, I recently gave Jim Hutchison, whose wife Patricia Hutchison owns the Peach Wave, I recently gave him a jersey of theirs to wear as we play some beer league hockey now. The Ferraro brothers. But they ran into some financial trouble quite quickly, and they had to sell. They sold that property to the Islanders. It's at I believe it's at Eisenhower Park, I think. Or right
We played Hitman used to play them. I think they were the PAL.
PAL Islanders.
Yep. And actually, we didn't have a bus the one time, so I had to drive from New Jersey there, and it was a long drive for a Floridian.
Well, that's really what ultimately kind of, luckily, it was kind of like something where I think in the end, Herm was kind of happy they didn't do the deal. First of all, it's a really expensive place to live. God only knows where the guys would have had to live unless the team was kind of like a situation where unless the team was so far out east,
Yep.
that essentially you were so far from the Rangers and Islanders and you were kind of like in seasonal housing or something, it might have worked. But ultimately the traffic alone on the LIE, it'd be impossible to get there for a 7 p.m. start. Let's say the league was just everybody was just in driving distance. I mean, you'd try and get there a little before the game, I guess, on Friday, and you probably wouldn't go Thursday to stay the night over in a hotel. So, like I said, it would be.
And it was Babylon. Is the
Wow, Babylon.
Yes,
So
that's
way
why
out there.
I was drawing a blank there.
So what I was going to ask you was, when you were growing up, was there where did hockey get into your life? You know.
So obviously my dad grew up with it. My dad decided to bring me first to Panthers practice, and I was able to see Roberto Luongo and just some other big names there. And I mean, I fell in love with it right off the bat. And then basically he's like, "Oh, let's just take him out skating." So at first I wasn't a big fan of skating. We would do public skating, and I didn't really want to get on the ice. But then over some time, I started to enjoy it, and then my dad threw me in some pickup games and started playing out. I was terrible. I was probably the worst player ever, and I wanted to play goal for a really long time. And my parents were like, "No, you're not a goalie. Too expensive.
I was gonna
crazy.
say no, thank
Yeah, no, not happening." And then finally, I think it was like 6 or 7 or something. I was terrible. I couldn't score. I just didn't do much. I was a defenseman too.
Yeah.
And my dad made a bet that if I score 3 goals in the season, that he'll let me be goalie.
Wow.
So I went out first game and scored 3 goals.
Wow.
And so my dad had to suck it up and buy me gear.
That's
and
funny.
Told the coach, said, "Hey, let's make sure he's never goalie again. Scare him a little bit." So he came down, and this guy's he played at Babson.
Wow.
Came down, took a slap shot from the hash mark at a 7-year-old kid, hit me square in the face, and I smiled at him when he did it. And the coach went over to my dad and said, "You have yourself a goalie. There's nothing you can do."
That's crazy.
So there, it started from there, and this is where it's led me.
Wow. I mean,
It's got to be all the equipment and stuff when you're a
Yeah.
kid, and just the look
Oh,
of it. And Luongo was kind of you a Panthers fan?
Yeah, I would say I'm a Panthers fan. I don't follow the NHL too much, but I definitely enjoyed watching them. And obviously last year with them and being this close to winning the Stanley Cup, I was cheering for them.
yeah.
Yeah, like I kind of remember when the Panthers first started and they had their first run
Oh, yeah.
way back in the day with Van Beesbrook and all those guys. And through the years, I always said, and they've done well, the last few years, obviously, but it's just like one of those things where you say to yourself, like, listen, the Panthers and the Arizona Coyotes, listen, the quality of life in those places is pretty good. Like, most people like it. I'm not really a Florida guy. I like it. My brother was down there for years. There are still, quite frankly, there are places I'd like to go to eat down there right
Yep.
now in my mind. But the truth is like, Arizona and Florida, man, like it's a nice lifestyle. The climate in Arizona is like it's the dry heat. You know what I mean? Like
I
it's
love that.
hot, but it's like
Yep.
it's still a nice place to live. And then Florida, man, like you're basically the Panthers. They're in Sunrise, but it's Lauderdale area, basically. You know what
Well,
I mean?
they just built a practice facility in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
So they just moved over there. So I'm kind of kicking myself over that because I used to drive 30 minutes to the rink every day.
Wow.
And then I was playing in Miami for a little bit, so that's an hour drive without traffic. With traffic, 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So
I always said that I think that Lauderdale, listen, everything is an incarnation of what can be done at the time that it can be done.
Mhm.
Right? So, like, you look at a deal like first of all, they played, I think, in the Miami Sports Arena for a couple of years
Yep.
when they first started. And then they built that place in Sunrise, which have I told that story before about the tickets?
No.
So years ago, I was with an ex of mine, and we went down to visit a cousin. And I was a big hockey fan, big fan. And we drove up to the Florida Panthers game. And I don't know, I was working a job and all this, and I'm on my vacation with my girl. I don't want to be bothered with half anything,
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck, forget it. I was like, I'm going to buy tickets from the scalper.
oh,
Right.
geez.
So I go up to the scalper, right? And the guy, and like I'm thinking, he's like, good tickets. It's gonna be, probably $75 a piece with taxes and everything. I was like, let me talk to this guy. The guy's like, listen, bro, I can get you up 3 rows. These tickets right here, 3 rows from the glass, $60 a piece. I was like, oh, you know what? That doesn't really sound too bad. I'm thinking New York prices, right? Like, I think of the last time I went to a Ranger game, I had like $155, and we were like in the nosebleeds, like with taxes and fees and all this stuff. Yeah. So I'm thinking $60, 3 rows from me, shows me the tickets. It's like, I'm looking at the number and everything. I was like, yeah, that's that. Like, I looked at my phone, I looked the seating chart up, like right there in front of him. I was like, oh, geez, if they're like, the guy wouldn't be standing. They weren't. The guy wouldn't be standing out there if they were fake. Yep. He wouldn't be standing right in front of the place. Yeah. And run away with like he didn't look like a crackhead that needed God forbid anybody that's a crackhead, but like he didn't look like the type of person that needed $120 so bad that he was just going to try and rob me right there. Right, there were other people standing around him, so I give him the money for the tickets. Right, we walk right in. The tickets are good. We walk right into the arena. We go down to the seats. The seats are fantastic. It's unbelievable. Still, the best seats I ever had for an NHL game, and I gotta be honest, the crazy thing about it was listen to this. I went to 2 games 2 years in a row, Florida Panthers, right? First year, it was the Florida Panthers versus the Atlanta Thrashers, right? The second year, it was the Florida Panthers versus the Winnipeg Jets. The same exact guys in a different uniform, because Winnipeg played in that division for a couple of years after they took the Thrasher spot. They played in that division. So it was the first year versus the Thrashers, right? I keep trying to not say Trashers, right? Thrashers and Trashers. So I get down there and I got the tickets and I'm feeling like $1 million with 3 rows from the glass, right? And there's nobody here. I'm telling you, there's like 8,000 people at this game. Like, there's not even 10. I'm in a row that's like empty, right? We went to like the middle so that we could kind of be at center ice, the end of the row, right? But in front of us, there's this dad, and he's like, it's crazy. Like, he's just standing up during the game, drinking a beer because there's nobody around. It was crazy. And he has like 5, 10 kids with him or something like that. And he's Canadian. He starts talking to us. He goes, hey, where are you from? Right? And we're like, we're from New York. We're here down here to see the game. And we start kind of talking about how there's nobody there. And I was like, yeah, there's nobody here. We just bought tickets outside. He's like, yeah, I bought remember, this guy's in the row in front of us, and he's got like 10 kids with him. He goes, yeah, you never believe this. I bought my tickets on this StubHub, Canadian, StubHub.com. Huh?
You did tell me about this, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I got my tickets on this StubHub.com,
For $5 a piece?
$7 a ticket. Yeah. The guy had 10 tickets. And there were $7. It was crazy. I was just like looking up in the sky. I'm just like, he's literally got 10 tickets in the row in front of me for $70. It was crazy, man. He like literally said, we waited out in the car, and I just bought it on my cellular. And I was just like, this is.
Well, for the longest time too, the Florida Panthers, when they played the Montreal Canadiens, there would be more Montreal Canadian fans than Panthers fans.
I believe
in the stands.
So the one guy sitting behind me was definitely from New York. You could tell he was from Long Island or something like that. And he was with his girl. And I just turned around to him and I was like, dude, do they ever get any fans here? He says, yeah, when the Rangers come. It's like, so that's the thing. It's like, but what happens is time passes. The Panthers make the playoffs again. Yep. They got real fans again, I'm sure.
Well, you heard the story behind the Panthers with the famous story with the rat.
No, yeah.
Yes.
I had my first paint job was with my coach called me a wizard because I used to make crazy saves out of the blue.
Oof.
So I had a wizard on the top of my head, and then on the right side of my head was a fish jumping because I'm a huge fisherman. Yeah. And then on the left side was the wizard holding a goalie stick, and the goalie stick had a dead rat hanging from the goalie stick. Like on the end of it. So that was the big thing. And then we still talk about it to this day. Even we've seen Vans Beesbrook and we're like, oh, the rat.
Well, that's the thing. Like the culture of a team gets just, especially in the NHL. And like I said, people, I really respect, and I haven't watched it in a long time, but I kind of really respect what's happened in Major League Soccer over the years. And it's been the same thing in the NHL, where it's just like there are real fan bases now. It's not just kind of people who are interested in soccer or hockey. Like, you go to Florida, yeah, I'm sure there's a ton of Rangers fans that come out. I'm sure there's a ton of people who wear their Rangers jersey instead of their Panthers jersey, and they live in Florida on that night. But I'll tell you this, all these teams have real fans now. You know what I mean? Like a real fan base that's been through it, and that's what makes sports fun to me, you know?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, seeing a game down there, that just sounds like a blast to me.
It's great.
That, and then, you know, kind of tracking back to you with Arizona, I mean, I've only been there once for like a week. That was fun. I want to go to a game there so bad. Just like currently though, I don't know if they ever build something big, if I would go or not. But like to see it, because that's kind of like a Danbury. You know what I mean? Having everything that close, and for what it is. I don't know.
Listen, I think that they are trying to mold the Panthers into like a Columbus. Like they're the NHL team that's in a big college town that doesn't have the NBA, that doesn't have baseball, and they're gonna create 15 to 20,000. You know, if they can have 12 to 14,000 fans a night, I'm probably sure it's worth it for them. I mean, it sounds crazy, but the truth is, that's probably a great place to live. I mean,
they all live on Las Olas, that big right down that street.
Oh yeah.
There's a funny story behind it, but I've actually been lucky enough to skate with those guys for the last couple summers. So a lot of this last summer, I actually skated a few days with rookie camp with them as an extra goalie before coming to camp in Mississippi. But there's a funny story behind it. So last year, when I was skating with them, they usually close it off so the fans can't come in. But the fans obviously know it's there, so they'll wait outside or whatever. But for some reason, they didn't close it off the one day. And I'm skating with like more than half the Panthers guys, and then a couple other NHL guys, some big names, Ovechkin, Malkin were out there.
Oh, wow.
So it was Barkov, Ekblad, and Huberdeau. And these guys were standing next to the glass, so they go to their locker room on the other side, so the fans can't really get to them. But I can't get dressed in that locker room, so I'm on the normal side where everyone else in the locker room gets dressed. So after practice, I actually had a really good practice. I get off the ice, and Barkov, Huberdeau, and Ekblad are all standing there signing pucks and whatever else they're coming over. And on my pads, it actually says Murray on it. Well, that was also, maybe it wasn't last year, but it was also the year the Penguins had won with Matt Murray.
Wow.
So I get off the ice, and they're like, Matt Murray, can you sign my puck? And I'm like, no, I'm not Matt Murray. I'm like, I really appreciate that, even thinking that, but I'm not Matt Murray. And then the guy kept handing me his puck, and I'm like, look, I'm not Matt Murray. He goes, okay, well, you're skating with them, so I want you to sign. Like, you're going to be the next NHL pro, like, like this big guy. And I'm like, no, it's not like that. Like, I'm just their shooter-tutor.
Yeah.
And
you're the bullpen goalie.
I look down the puck, and it has Ekblad, Barkov, and Huberdeau's signature. And I'm like, dude, you don't want me to ruin this puck for you. Like, this is a really good puck right now. And finally, after like 4 minutes of arguing, I think it was Ekblad turned around and goes, just sign the puck. So this poor guy, luckily what I did was I signed Murray and then like kind of scribbled it. So hopefully that guy still thinks it's Matt Murray. But there's some guy with 3 huge NHL guys and my signature on it.
That's funny. That's really funny.
That's a rare collectible, though.
There you go.
You know what it is like? There's that. I probably talked about it before. I wrote a story once about emergency goalies for the New York Times many years ago, and it's like even a guy that I grew up with, Mike Samella. You know, everybody calls him Sasso. He works at a rink. He did for many years. I think he's still there at City Ice Pavilion in Long Island City, Queens. And like this guy is a guy I've known since I was a kid, and this guy was playing hockey. He played at Chaminade, like where I believe Chris Higgins played from NHL, played at Chaminade, and there's other guys who went very far. I want to say Komisarek played there too, Mike Komisarek. I'm not 100% sure. But, he went from Queens every day to Chaminade High School on Long Island to be like one of the goalies on the hockey team back in the 90s. And he, I don't think he ended up really doing any college hockey or anything like that, but he ended up kind of doing some practice, like e-bug situations for the Rangers in like limited situations, like last year when Brian Wilson got sent over to the New Jersey Devils to have some. John Marino was doing rehab, and they wanted him to start taking shots on somebody, and Brian Wilson from the Danbury Hat Tricks got sent into that situation. This guy that I know did stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Like there was like maybe some guys that were injured with some young guys.
That was what I was doing this summer. And
right. This is the type of opportunities that hate to say random, but random goalies get,
It was a big opportunity.
Free agent goalies.
A lot of guys don't know this yet because I really haven't spoken about it much. But I was there as they have a big program for the summer for the NHL guys. There's a lot of NHL guys, and that's partly why hockey's so big in Florida is because so many guys retire in Florida. A lot of big Russian players all go live in Miami. Oh, yeah. And then they just coach as their part-time thing. But I was just skating there. There was a bunch of top big-name NHL guys. And I was just over time just kept skating. Less guys were there, and then more Panthers guys would show up. And then one day I got asked, and I said, hey, can you come a little bit earlier and skate? Because I was skating for like 3-4 hours with these guys, just taking as many shots as they would shoot at me. And I get on the ice, and a few of the guys get on, like big-name Florida Panthers guys. And then like 2 goalies get on, Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight. And I'm like, oh, this is weird. Like, why do they need me? There's 2 goalies. Well, then another 2 goalies come out. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And then another goalie comes out. And then another goalie comes out, and there's 6 goalies on the ice, plus me. And I go over to the goalie coach, who I know I grew up with. He coached me. And I'm like, hey, do you guys need me? Like, there's 6 guys out here. And he goes, no, we need you. Don't worry about it. So he, like, sends me to the corner. He's like, just wait, and whenever you need it, when they say get in the net, get in the net. And one of the guys, the rookies, come over to me and go, hey, this is rookie camp, right? And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, I guess so. Because I'm wearing a jersey. It doesn't even have the Panthers stuff on it. Well, Bobrovsky ends up sharing the net with me and is talking to me, having this nice conversation. I do okay. I mean, it's still NHL shots, but I felt pretty good with what I did. And I went into the scrimmage. Some of the guys got off the ice early, the goalies, so then I was skating with them. And then about a week before Mississippi, I get a call saying that they Everblades might need a goalie as a fill-in in their camp for a few weeks just because their guys are in the A right now with them. Yeah. However, so I was going to go there right before Mississippi, and then what happened was the Panthers sent their guys down. A guys sent their guys down to the Everblades, and then they ended up not needing me. But just a little helping the team out and just being a practice guy, I almost got an opportunity and a shot in the coast.
Wow.
And it may not be the biggest shot, but it's any shot's a shot, which is awesome. And that's what when I talked to Willie, he said the exact same thing. Brian Wilson, he said a shot's a shot, and that's the best thing I took from his advice was just any opportunity is a good opportunity.
I was gonna say with those 2 stints, in the A for him, especially suiting up as a backup for Springfield and even Belleville and like those Bridgeport games.
Right.
That's still getting up there.
It's a good opportunity. You guys, you're at the age now where you can drop everything and just go down to a skate if they need you. And it's great. There are so many good stories. Like when I did that story, that was like an e-bug story where it was like I'm kind of highlighting all these kind of intense situations for e-bugs, right? But like this is almost another thing where it's like, goalie's a unique position, and like sometimes you need an extra one. You almost always need an extra one.
Oh, yeah.
We're running a little beginner's adult skate on Sunday night at 7 p.m. at Danbury Arena this Sunday, January 14th. So if you never played hockey before, you're just getting into beer league hockey, come down, contact me. But, it's one of those things. You need goalies. And there's really, I don't know how many goalies fit that description even at the E-League. But I had to go out there and get a couple of goalies that would be appropriate, and those guys are going to come down, and they're going to skate for free like the goalies do, right? You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where, it's a unique position, and with that comes unique opportunities, right?
There's only so many crazy guys out there that are willing to get in front of a puck.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, right, there are so many guys. I think Matt Voidy, the Hat Tricks kind of, goalie coach, and he's the coach of the NA3HL Hat Tricks. He coaches all the goalies kind of in the program. And, we talk about it all the time. It's like there's a lot of good goalies right now because there are only so many opportunities for a goalie. Yep. So it's like D1 goalies, could be 3, it could be 4, but that's it. You know what I mean? And you're seeing now, if you're watching kind of the Instagram of the college and amateur and the Fed and all this stuff, hockey, some of the ACHA goalies are getting called up to the Division I teams. I think somebody did this.
ASU, I think it was.
Yeah, somebody.
ASU, Quinnipiac too.
Quinnipiac also, right? And I think there was a couple other schools, definitely D3 schools.
And that's a thing is the goalies might not be in the best league or might be in a lower league, but there's so many good goalies out there that they just might not have the opportunity right now. Mm-hmm. Brian Wilson is a prime example. He went from D1 and then he went to the Coast, the SB, and the Fed, and he loved it and he did well in all his leagues. But just because he may be in the lower of a pro league doesn't mean he's any worse than or any better than the other guy. And then he was in the Coast this year and did well.
It's a unique position.
It's such a unique position, and comparing a goalie just by what league he's in, you can't really do it. It's not like players.
It's not a one-to-one comparison with a skater.
Exactly, that's
really
the best way to put it.
It's not a one-to-one comparison with skaters. There's an excess of goalies, and one of the reasons I think you're seeing expansion. It sounds crazy, but on some very minute level, and we can call Billy and Joe Pace, and they could weigh in on this. But one of the reasons you're probably seeing expansion in the Fed is because on some micro level, there are a lot of goalies, and you need goalies to play hockey. It's just one of those things. It goes beyond. I mean, how many times have guys gone to skates? Even the average person goes to a lunchtime drop-in hockey skate, and there are no goalies. It's because it's a hard thing to nail down sometimes. So I think that probably the expansion of college hockey, the expansion of the Fed, and even the expansion of some of the club hockey probably shows you that there's an excess number of goalies now.
And also, you can look in the NHL. How many of those guys are older? They're not lasting super long, but they're lasting long enough that there's only 2 spots on each team, so that holds a spot for 10 years. Bobrovsky, for example, is a prime one.
And you got to remember, Americans are learning hockey too. Goalie was always such a tough position to buy all the equipment for him. We're kind of learning in America. You can use used equipment. You don't need a brand. When you're just kind of getting into, you don't need a brand new blocker. You just need to learn. Yep. So I think that's and a lot of the one-on-one coaching that wasn't there 20 years ago.
Yep. And that's a big thing with Florida. Is Florida has a lot of one-on-one coaching. Mm-hmm. That's a big thing in Florida. They don't have as much stick and pucks, and they do, but a lot of the goalies all have private lessons. They do their hour lesson once a week, twice a week, and it's a lot of money, but they get a lot of work done with that on top of their practices.
So as we close out the hour here, Liam, why don't you just tell us a little bit about where we're into the new year? We're recording on Wednesday the 10th. What's the vibe been in practice like this week, going into the home games this weekend against Binghamton?
I hate to admit it, but the boys have been flying. They've definitely been putting more pucks in the net, so I feel really scared for the other team. Hope their goalies are ready. But on a serious note, the guys look really good. I'm pretty confident with how we're doing with the last 4 games now. We've been doing really well, and I can only imagine where we're going to go with it. The locker room's great. Everyone gets along so well. Everyone wants to be here. Everyone wants to win, and that's the biggest thing is culture. And I've definitely seen that since I've been here. It's even grown more. But yeah, I'm excited. I feel bad for Bingo, man.
So do we.
Yeah. Liam, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Best of luck this weekend.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course.